Hello, everybody, and welcome to W Talks at Winpy with me, Nupur Garg. Those of you who have been with us for some time would recall Winpy Insights, our fortnightly series where we brought industry leaders and thought leaders in candid conversations. W Talks is Insights re energized and amped up because now not only do I get to ask the questions, but so does our network and all of you who are watching. So gear up for our guest, Anjali Sosale, partner at Waterbridge Ventures. Hi, Anjali. How are you?
Hi, Nupur. Thank you so much for having me here and very excited to spend the next 60 minutes answering. You always ask the hardest, toughest questions, but looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Anjali. And you know what? I'm sure we are all going to learn so much about the venture industry today. So, why don't we start with talking a bit about your journey in the venture capital space and what really attracted you to become an early stage investor?
Yeah, sure. I think if I have to rewind all the way back, I come from Bangalore. I'm born and raised here, and I've been trained in finance. I'm a chartered accountant by qualification. And I actually started my career in 2006 in investment banking. I spent a full decade with Ernst& Young, and very early on, I started focusing on the retail and consumer side of things. And as we all know, between 6 and 16, 4G and the internet economy really took off. And for me, traditional retail and consumer products therefore naturally extended into e-commerce and the internet economy. So I started leading the startup practice, and from doing growth, I actually went reverse and started doing more early stage A and B deals. And one thing led to another. I then moved on to the Flipkart group. I started working with Myntra and Jabong, which were both incidentally acquired assets for Flipkart. And I worked with the first CEO there, Anant, hired me along with a whole bunch of people. And I said, this will be a great exposure to get an operating role and to also work in a professionally led startup. Myntra was already $1 billion in GMV. This was 2017 January. So I was very excited to join that team and incredibly talented, leadership at the very top. And of course, the story was to prove that we can make e-commerce profitable and put Myntra and Jabong on the path to profitability. Over there, really had the opportunity to lead the investment program. So we ran the Brand Accelerator program where we did almost 17 to 18 investments in early stage brands. This was, I think, well before the word D2C was even coined. So we took small bets in up and coming brands, mostly manufacturer led brands, and that was like a very interesting time to not just make an investment from a CVC or a balance sheet perspective, but also, like I said, incubate and scale these brands to 100 crores plus each in revenue. And then Waterbridge happened in January 20. Waterbridge, as you know, is an early stage tech focused VC firm. We do 1 to 3 million investments come in as early as possible. We always say first institutional check. For me, really, it was, I would say, full cycle, very similar to, I think, how the overall Indian investment, I would say cycles have also evolved. And CVC and institutional investing is not the same. So for me, this was actually fully transitioning into an institutional VC role. And more importantly, staying close to early stage and that very critical 0 to 1 journey where founders build there.
What an amazing journey, Anjali! And I think it's about building on your experiences and just building on your passion, I guess, because you've moved from different roles and exposure to different sectors, and now at Waterbridge, which is a tech-based fund. What is your thesis in terms of sectors and trends and tech that you're bullish on for the next 10-year cycle?
Yeah. No, thanks for asking that because not too many people realize that at the early stage as a VC firm that you can actually have a high conviction thesis-led approach. So we always say that we're building or rather trying to build the Union Square Ventures of India. So we're one of those firms that spend a lot of time top down doing market mapping, market analysis, and we actually publish our thesis. If you look at our website or LinkedIn page, you'll see every 2 weeks, every month, we write a thesis in a particular micro theme. So we've always believed in taking a highly selective few concentrated bets each year. We've done 34 deals. We're 7 years young, so the math is straightforward. We've averaged 5 deals a year. And for us, we actively publish a thesis across 8 sectors, and these 8 sectors are broad and as broad as, I would say, education, fintech, healthcare, manufacturing, climate, and deep tech now are our two new areas of interest. And then, of course, global SaaS. But for us, like I said, it's not just the macro sectors, but we actually publish sub themes within each of these. So, for example, in manufacturing tech, which is one of our most recently published theses, we have, of course, a positive list and a negative list, but we've developed what we call a DPP framework, which is demand enablement, productivity, and procurement. So for us, we're super excited about these three themes. When I say demand enablement, we mean enabling SMEs to export to the world, or even like building tech tools, platforms that drive even domestic demand for them. Productivity, the second P for us could be about labor productivity, about making factories smart, shop floor productivity, Industry 4.0 tools, industrial automation tools. But how do you increase the efficiency of output? And procurement for us is the entire supply chain. As we know, India's supply chain is very fragmented, very import dependent, very SME led, very unorganized. We believe that with the formalization of the economy, the freight corridor coming in, higher GST adoption, that there are a lot of efficiencies that tech-led businesses can drive. They could be B2B tools, they could be B2B commerce tools, they could be like pure procurement softwares. But that's briefly, I would say, how we approach various theses. But currently, very excited about some of these themes here.
Thank you, Anjali. And if I can say so, what I really enjoyed hearing was a very differentiated approach to how you built your thesis. And, we so frequently hear from early stage fund managers about tech, internet penetration, mobile penetration, tech. But, to hear you integrate that with a bit of the traditional economy, a bit on, say, manufacturing, freight corridors, GST, SMEs, etc. I think that's a wonderful way of integrating different parts of the economy which are going to be driving domestic growth. So
Yes, I
thank you for
think
that.
no, you're right. I think I know omni is a word that people use frequently, but for a country as wide and deep and vast as India, I don't think you could do purely digital or purely offline. And I always say that uniquely local business models is what makes the space exciting to be in. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Anjali, we'll just keep building on this. Uh, the startup ecosystem has really evolved a lot in the last few years, and especially in the last couple of years, there has been a large inflow of capital in the early stage space. To the extent that a lot of people say that capital is commodity. So, how do investors stay ahead in accessing and closing the best deals?
No, that's almost, there's no straight answer to that. And it's almost like a trick question to give away our secret sauces of how we select the founders that we choose to back. But I think it's also important to understand typically how various VC firms invest. And I always say to founders that also understand the strategy of the VC firm and see whether it bodes well to overall how are you thinking of building and scaling the business or the problem that you've chosen to solve for. For us, as I said, it's very selective bets. And so we always tell founders that don't look at us as a 1 to 3 million first check or your first institutional VC partner, but we are someone who would love to continue investing and invest and therefore hold meaningful equity ownerships up until Series C. So our framework has always been it's not just the first check, but if you're really saying that you're a high conviction investor, you're taking highly selective concentrated bets every year, then you should have the ability to follow on and not just sign a first check. Our follow on ratios average 2.5 to 3x for every $1 we've invested at the beginning. So for us, it's when we say high conviction, It's not consensus based. We've always led all our rounds. I always tell my founders that even if no one else comes in and joins this round, like we will be there. And like I said, we will continue to support you in your journey all the way up until Series C. I think that is the way we have differentiated our approach to this ecosystem. And I think roughly, you see what 300-400 deals a month. That's really the top of the funnel. And I think everyone keeps trying to evolve, like, or I would say, figure a method to this madness of how do you funnel down and filter down those 3,000-4,000 deals that you see every year to those 4 to 6 deals where you actually go ahead and invest in. And for us, one is, of course, a thesis-led approach that we spoke about. We come with, a prepared mind or a very strong point of view on those 8 different macro themes, and within that, positive as well as negative themes. We make that publicly available so founders know that we're excited about building or meeting founders in these solving for these particular problem statements. The second thing for us is just I like to call it anticipating the future. We really keep crystal ball gazing and trying to see what like the next decade will hold in terms of trends. And we do a lot of outbound at Waterbridge. So 50%, in fact, of the founder meetings that we do are actually outbound. So in many ways, our focus has been that have a point of view in a sector and like almost seek out the founders that you want to partner with.
That's amazing, Anjali. From building a thesis to being able to identify the companies and the founders that you want to work with. I think that is an extraordinarily proactive approach in a market where a lot of investors actually rely on inbounds.
Yes, I
And
think no, I think most founders who meet us or who have interacted with us will tell you that we take our time to evaluate. It may sound very contrary to the way VC deals are done, but we are the kind of investors who will take time, spend time to fully understand and like buy into the vision of the founders. And I always say it's very similar to a marriage. You have to be in this for the long haul. And if you can't imagine having this conversation every day or every week with your founder, then it's going to be a tough relationship to start. Yeah.
so, really, how do you build that conviction? I mean, what are some filters? So, yes, the sector thesis is a filter for sure. But
Yeah.
at the founder level, at the startup idea, business model level, what are your top filters?
Yeah. Yeah. To begin with, we invest in early stage. So many times, and you know this better than anyone, Nupur, data is very fractured, and it's also very always say you're working on limited data and asymmetric data as well. We always put founders ahead of market. So yes, while we have a thesis, we have like positive and negative spaces. You can't not focus on the founder. Ultimately, you're backing a particular founding team. And if you take like a 10-12 year view, which is the natural time frame in India, always we feel will take particularly longer for these businesses to evolve and mature. It's possible that the original idea ultimately pivots into something else, right? The set of assumptions that you start off with will continuously evolve and change. And for that reason, I think it's very important to understand whether the founding team has that kind of scalability, whether they have the ability to move from seed to A to growth, because the challenges that you'll face, not just from scaling the product, but just hiring the teams below you, building out like company culture, expansion playbooks. The challenges at Series A are very different from those at Series C. So founder scalability for us, therefore, is a key evaluation metric, if I may, or something that we try to gauge and sense from all the early conversations. And for us, I think we're known to back what we say founders from eclectic backgrounds, and we really like founders who come with a high opportunity cost, if I may, and we feel that would give them their unfair advantage. The fact that you've already built in the particular space, or you've already experienced the problem, but from a different like vantage or a point of view. So those are some of the what do I say, that the positives or something that would attract Waterbridge towards a particular founding team.
Thank you, Anjali. Can we move a little bit to exits and track records? And for the longest time, venture track records have been unrealized. I think in recent years, we've seen a couple of exits, but by and large, the exit market is still not as well developed to support the volume of investments that are being made. But are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
seeing anything change? What are you seeing change? And how is this exit opportunity growing?
Yeah. No, I think it's the elephant in the room. I think always there has been like a question mark on India's ability to deliver exits in the VC space. But I think the last few years has really changed not just the narrative, but also the actual exit values in favor of the VC ecosystem. I was actually looking at some numbers because we discussed this previously as well. And VC in India, firstly, is a very young, very new asset class. We're really just seen, I would say, one full 10-year cycle. And I think we've roughly raised about 124, I think it's 125 billion of VC funding in the last 10 years in India. And if we see the exits that the same asset class has delivered, it's about like 60 billion in exits. So 60 billion of exits in a base of 125 is, if I have to put it in VC jargon, like a point 4, point 0.5 DPI, which I think, given that this is, like I said, the first full 10-year cycle, is not bad at all. And like I said, if you take the recent trajectory, it's only positive. And I think Mamaearth IPO very recently was again favorable evidence in terms of how the VC ecosystem has evolved. And we should also remember that always say another nice metric is the market cap of new age tech stocks to our overall market cap. And for us, if you combine all the new age tech stocks, it's literally 34 billion on a 4 trillion market cap. This number is almost 50% in the US. All, I think, the top 10 largest market caps in the US, I think 7 of them were all venture backed and all originated as venture backed companies: Apple, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla, all of them. And even in China, it's 33%. And India is really the third largest VC ecosystem in the world after these two. And so I feel with time, these numbers will really improve. But literally 58 billion on 124 billion, 0.47, zero point 0.5 DPI, as I say, for the overall India VC ecosystem is not bad and very positive.
Completely agree, Anjali. I think that data is really eye-opening. So clearly, there is a long way for our markets, especially to develop an appreciation for
Yeah.
new age stocks. And just wanting to change track a bit here, how important when you're thinking of the outcomes from your investment, you're obviously thinking of the financial returns, but how important is it to balance the financial goals with the broader impact they can have, especially when you're working in sectors like education and financial services, manufacturing, SMEs, etc., where social impact can be very significant.
No, thank you for asking that. And I think for us, that has always been a core tenet or a key pillar for us. In fact, we literally just earlier this month published our 2023 sustainability report. So would really encourage folks, if you don't subscribe to our newsletter already, to do. And we will be covering case studies, and we'll make that public soon. But when we did a look back over the last 6 years of investing at Waterbridge, our ambition really, yes, of course, you need the exits and the returns. But for us, fundamentally, we every investment that we do, we work across three what we call impact themes or alignment. One for us is, of course, environmental health. Specifically, it's about climate change and food sustainability. The second pillar for us is improving the quality of livelihoods. That could be through education, health, and a better financial inclusion and access. And the third tenet for us is really to build sustainable businesses, or support livelihoods. When I say specifically two micro themes under that, one is enabling primary or secondary sources of income. It could be informal labor, gig economy, and secondly, the whole SME enablement or SME empowerment piece. But I think for us, in all our IC notes, we always say, hey, is this fostering environmental health? Is this improving quality of life via healthcare, education, financial inclusion, or is this supporting livelihoods by way of directly generating income? It could be primary, it could be secondary sources of income, it could be gig economy, it could be SME led. So these pillars and our sustainability themes are really important for us. And we've actually measured, we feel that it is essential to report on these metrics, all our portfolio MISs to report on these metrics. And at Waterbridge, we've touched 175 million lives in the 7 years that we have been in early stage. And our ambition is to touch 1 billion lives by 2030.
Amazing, amazing. And it can't be easy because for the longest time there has been this conversation. Startups, it's too early to talk about things like sustainability, governance, diversity, etc. Right? And this debate on when is it the right time? Should
Yeah.
startup founders be really focused on building and scaling the business? Is this like a distraction? So, how do you guys
Yeah.
approach it?
No, those are all questions we get asked, and you're absolutely right. When you're working with an early stage founder who's literally struggling to hire his or her first few engineers, it's very hard to go and tell them, can you please adopt our ESG policy, or can you please tell us what are the 3 impact metrics that you'd like to start tracking. For us, when we do the policy level integration within the portfolio, we really right size it to the stage in which these companies are. So if you're on the seed stage, we of course PMF and literally finding revenue is critical and important, but doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the right, say, employee grievance policies or health and safety or POSH or anti-bribery, anti-corruption thing. So I think the levels of integration vary based on whether you're seed or A or B or C. But that framework is something that we publish and something that we actively work with our portfolio, and also internally at the investment manager level as well. And we have like these guiding principles that we start embedding early on. But for us, it's more about setting the right context early on and setting the right, I would say, goalposts early on, so that it doesn't come as a surprise later on for founders, and just making it part of their core DNA as they set out to build these companies. I think my last point there is also that if you look back at the Waterbridge portfolio, we always say that we invest in real world businesses and real world problem statements. And in India, as you know, any market you touch will obviously be meaningfully large and deep. So if you're like a rural gold loan company, for example, we'd expect that you very transparently publish your pricing. You don't behave like a loan shark. You treat the jewelry of the lady of the household with respect. You give her access to it anytime she wants. She can withdraw it, park withdraw it anytime she wants. Photographs of that jewelry are available live, on the app. But these things we integrate very early on. Having said that, of course, you very rightly said, Nupur, it changes at every level. But for us, it's more about imbibing that culture and making it part of your playbook, your scale playbook early on.
Amazing, amazing, Anjali. And I have a question on this, and I will come back to that later. But I wanted to continue this conversation and dig deeper into the diversity and inclusion aspect. And at your portfolio level, at the firm level, but also at the whole industry, the PEVC industry level, given your perspective and your experience, how can the industry and the firms enhance diversity and inclusion, and what role do you think investors, and because you're a woman, women investors can play in shaping
Um,
this?
yeah. I think Madeleine Albright famously said that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help women. So I think, firstly, all of us play a very, very important role. I think it's not just the like the policymakers or the legislative bodies, but it's also all of us as women investors. It's also our male allies as well in the ecosystem. We definitely wouldn't be able to move forward without their support. But for me, it has to be this 360 all encompassing way to consolidate and solve and address this issue of this lack of women's participation, both on the investor side as well as on the founder side. But specifically on the investor side, since that was your question, I think definitely intervention is required. If you only wait for policy level change, it's going to take, I think the data says, like 2 centuries to achieve 50% participation in workforce. But for me, at a very personal Waterbridge level, for example, whenever we run our fast forward investment program on the founder side, we say that if you're a female founder applying, we'll definitely make sure that an investment professional gives you a video call and you can pitch directly to an investment team member. When we hire for the portfolio, we make sure that women candidates are actively sought after and sought and encouraged to apply. We make sure that the number of interviews we do are equal to the best extent possible. But these are very, very specific, high intent things that you have to do. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible to encourage more women to join not just our teams, but to join the portfolio teams as well. And for me, it's not just about joining, it's about how are you mentoring, hand holding, and I always say enabling them for success, right? It's one thing to say that you hire people or you make the effort to hire, but it's the other thing about, have you set up the right, do they have mentors, do they have sponsors, are you really setting them up well for success internally in the portfolio as well as in the firm. And I'd like to say that we were chatting about this offline, that culture is like again a key pillar for us and just the way in which we're building. And it is something that we talk about as well, that are we giving everyone the adequate amounts of support and enabling them. And so for us, it could just be introducing them to the right peer group at other VC firms. We actively have communities within the investing ecosystem, whether it's offline mixers or whether it's formal training sessions that we run. But all of this, it has to be done with the right set of intent, and it has to be done collectively. I don't think any of us can do this in silos, and we cannot do this alone. So it has to be, I always say, it has to be done collectively. And I'm actually also very proud of the way in which the ecosystem does in fact come together to support one another, whether it's the work that you do at WinP or the multiple founder groups that we have, female founder groups that we have, the women in investing groups that we have. I think everybody fully understands that we're stronger together, and that is really the only way forward. And of course, our male allies included here.
You're so right, Anjali. I think we cannot achieve any outcomes without intentionality and,
Yes.
action which is based on that intent. And, I really love another thing you said. It's about culture and creating the resources that will set women up for success, because you cannot just stop at hiring them, if the environment around them. So there's all of this about equity, equality, equal access, equal opportunity. There are just so many terms around it, but it just boils down to say, can you just make sure that they have an equal opportunity in the truest sense. But again, bunch of questions coming up, but before I go there, one thing we always hear is that it's very difficult to take this conversation up with founders. Sustainability, ESG, to a certain extent, they are open to because they have been around for a long period of time. And for many fund managers, it's relatively easier to say, listen, my LPs want this, and therefore we have to do this. But DEI hasn't reached that level yet. And even at a broader governance level, I don't think there is the same type of push that ESG had. So, how do you take up these conversations with the founders? How do you introduce diversity, for example, as a priority?
Yeah, no, you're right. These conversations are incredibly hard, and in early stage, as you know, you're only as good as the capital you have in the bank. So when you're actually talking about company existential issues, it's hard to come in and say, "Hey, can you tell me what your D&I policy is, or prove to me that for every male candidate you're interviewing, you're making the effort to interview a female candidate." But for me, it's always, as I say, horses for courses, and just making sure it's the right degree of influence. and the right level of implementation of that. So it's not going to happen in month one or month two, for example, but it's something that you need to keep reinforcing in the founder's mind, literally when you do that monthly board meeting or that monthly MIS review. And that's always been the way I have personally approached it. It's always discussed, but it never gets or slips out of the agenda points that you want to discuss with the founder on a monthly basis. And like I said, if you've seeded that thought early on, and for me, this is a lot about expectation setting. If you have set those expectations well early on, then the founder knows that, hey, she's going to ask me this, and as long as I have a path to achieving this, or we sit out and agree that these are the three impact metrics that I think I can meaningfully improve, or these are the roles where I feel like women will like come in and like outperform, or I would definitely want to make the effort to have more women than men. But I think for us, it's about seeding those thoughts early, but consistently. You have to be relentless. So you just have to consistently make sure that they are directionally moving, towards achieving some of these DNI goals. And like I said, for us, it's not just about tracking in the MIS how many men and women you're employing, but is it part of the process? Is it like part of the
Yeah.
hiring process? And and what are you doing to actively not just retain but to scale them up? Because it's not okay to have 50% at the junior levels, and it's like an inverse funnel, right, with women. And as they move up, you're like, the working hours don't work, or suddenly we were having a conversation on another women only community on maternity leave policies for an early stage startup. Should it just be the mandatory 6 months, or should you be giving like a year paid leave? What happens if somebody asks for a full year of paid leave? Can you even afford it? Like you were saying, you have existential issues as a startup. But just the fact that we're having these debates today, and early stage founders are seeking out help and advice, I would say, from the ecosystem, just tells you how far the ecosystem has moved. I think a few
True.
years ago, the first thing you do is not hire that person, or the first thing you'll do is just stick to exactly what the law prescribes you to do. But the fact that at early stage, people understand, like I always say, that it's not just about sticking to exactly what the policy framework is or what the statute requires you to do, but is your intent like really and genuinely to make sure that like women not just stay but they succeed, and they move to leadership positions within the org. I think, to summarize, I don't think you can achieve everything on day zero or month one, but it's something that you have to keep seeding. You have to be persistent in focusing on that, and you have to be part of the process. I think it's not just about telling your founders that you want to do something. It's how are you again actively supporting them. You can't only preach. I always say you have to participate. So as a firm, we actively make sure that we are sending sufficient number of resumes. We're enabling the founder to get through some of these processes easier, and that's again a sign of intent and also seriousness that you really want this to work out for both of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Anjali. You are, and you were, you are, and you continue to be a massive, massive champion for, diversity, for inclusion. And I know how much I have benefited from your support and how much Vinpi has benefited from your support. And I am also aware of a number of young women who have
Yeah,
benefited from your support and who absolutely love you. But I also want to, say that thing you said about male allies.
yeah,
I think at Waterbridge, we have found a team which also has the male allies that we
yes,
need to move this conversation forward. So, really,
yeah.
thank you to all of you for everything that you're doing to push the whole gender diversity conversation forward. Now, coming back to, PVC, looking ahead, gazing into the crystal ball. What are your thoughts on the future of venture capital, and what excites you the most about the evolving landscape of PVC?
Yeah, I think everything. I think just the fact that we really feel it's India's decade. I think there is so much excitement in the air, on the ground. It's almost like this is really our decade. And as I was saying, just the share of new age tech in India vis-a-vis our overall market cap is less than 1%. Even I think tech penetration it's not about just tech penetration in listed markets, but the digital economy, as we know, is growing 2.5x times faster than the overall Indian economy in the last 4 to 6 years. So for me, all of this is very, very exciting. I think the fact that now digital commerce will just not just remain something that the top 10, 20 cities will enjoy, but will also move to the rest of India, Middle India, or Bharat, as we say. That is another huge contributing factor to this excitement. And really, the fact that you could make all of this inclusive, for me, these are the three, I would say, wedges that makes it exciting for us. I think digital penetration across sectors, whether it's food, e-commerce, any of the spaces, is all, I would say, high single digit, and we hope that this will all get to 20-30% in the next decade. So I think multiple things on the macro that is favoring us, and specifically on the ground, just in terms of the founder ecosystem. For me, we're seeing the first cycle of second, you could call it like 2x entrepreneurs. So we've seen the first generation of entrepreneurs who really had to build and figure everything out literally on their own. But now, given this is really the second decade, I would say, of VC in India, you're seeing that the whole founder support ecosystem and the 2x entrepreneur come back, wiser, smarter, and better equipped than ever to build for India. And that for me is the other exciting part of this. You have people, you have like the unicorns, for example, just like spitting out founders, by the dozen. And these things, I would say, keep me excited about being in early stage. Yeah.
Anjali, now it is time for my favorite part of this discussion, huh, which is
Yeah.
the rapid fire questions. But
Oh
before
God.
we go there, I'll just remind our viewers that they can start sending in their comments. We already have some questions, and I'll get to them as soon as the rapid
Yeah.
fire section is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ready?
I am ready. Am I going to get a hamper at the end of this, Nupur?
Maybe that is something we need to do. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. To earn your hamper,
Yes.
advice to entrepreneurs looking for funding.
I
One
would say
advice.
just be yourself. I hope you didn't mean monosyllabic advice, but I would say, okay, let me expand.
One
I would say
sentence is enough.
be yourself, play to your strengths, and think about it as something that you need to do every day for the next 10 years. Would you still want to do it? Yeah.
Advice to young investors.
uh, Put your head down, keep working, build like a 360 support group. And what I mean by that is have a community of peers, juniors, seniors, both not just within the organization, but both inside and outside. Also have like this entire 360 outside your organization as well. Yeah.
Okay. One piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your career.
I actually think it would be that. I think one thing I did was just put my head like two down and kept working. But I really wish I had built. I really wish I had built that community outside. I think it's also important to look at orgs and roles outside in, and not be in. I don't want to say echo chambers, but it's important to have an outside, fresh. More like a first principles basis approach as well. So build support systems not just inside an org, but also outside an org. Yeah.
Completely agree with that. And I didn't do enough of that either. Right? We just tend to
Yeah.
just put our heads down and work
Put your
very,
head
very
down.
hard.
Yes, just keep working. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, we underestimate the value of having that network of people. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Yeah, given that I just binge watched the last season of The Crown, I was on a flight yesterday. I would actually say Princess Diana. I think And I think she beat patriarchy better than anyone else has in the world's oldest institution over like 3 decades ago. And the fact that we still talk about her, I don't think we've ever viewed her in that lens. But I was thinking about it,
That's true.
and I would say that I would love to ask her about it. Yeah.
That's true. Even I didn't think about her from that point of view.
She
Yeah,
really broke stereotypes. She challenged the institution, and she kept challenging it till the very end. And it is, and as I watched the show, I was thinking about it. Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Can you share a success story from one of your portfolio companies that really stands out for you?
This is like asking you to pick from all your children. But I think since we're in December and generally like reflective year-end mode, if I could stick to this year and just do a flashback. I think we've had. I'm sitting in Bombay right now, so for any of you who travel here, you would have seen the big electric Chalo buses that ply from the airport to BKC. So Chalo has had a big year. Waterbridge is in our seventh year, so it's been really heartening to see some of our Fund One companies scale and build out so well. For us, Bima Kavach and insurance got their broking license amongst the first few companies to get it again this year. So that was also a key highlight for us. The rural gold loan company I spoke about, Yellow Metal, that actually takes women's household jewelry, and 60% of the world's gold lies with Indian women, and that too in rural households. And so I think that they crossed like 10 million in disbursements across 12 cities. I think we were really able to prove that there is a huge social, emotional stigma of women coming with their jewelry to bank branches and waiting for hours at a time, traveling 2 hours just to get a line of credit so that their husbands could buy seeds and or like buy produce to be able to sell. They're either mostly wholesale traders or agriculturists. And so for us to be able to prove that entire playbook of digital first disbursements, not just in the privacy of your home, but the fact that you have access to this jewelry at any point of time, just at a click of a button. I think that was also very heartening to see this year. Yeah.
No, that actually that model is really very heartwarming, if I can say so. Right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
sort of solving a problem without, without creating the stigma, right? I mean, you're solving for
Yes.
many different things through this. So absolutely, and Anjali, another thing I have to say is that one can really see your passion for your work come through. The way you speak about your work, the sector, your thesis, your portfolio companies. It's just absolutely amazing hearing you. But
You're
outside
just
of
very
work,
kind, Nupur. Yeah.
no, I'm serious. I'm serious, Anjali. But seriously, outside of work, what's a hobby or
Yeah.
passion that keeps you energized and motivated to get back to your work?
Now it's going to sound like I don't have any life, but anyways, I've actually no, I'm actually an early riser, so like morning is I'm a very morning person. So I've been like yoga and meditation is my thing. So I've been doing it for many years now. I started as a student, just for focus and just to get over all the exam stress. But I think I just stuck to it. And particularly during the pandemic, I was just able to dedicate more time to it. But I would say every day starts on a yoga mat, and just have really enjoyed it. One of my personal goals, in fact, is to get better at some of these meditation practices. So I hope I can continue. I think it helps me stay sane and just remain focused. I would say, given the highs and the lows and the peaks and the troughs that you really see not just daily but weekly as well, and the very unstructured nature of just the way the business works, and just that whole context switching that you have to keep doing multiple times every day and week. So for me, it's yeah, morning person, and I hope I can get more outdoor um, you know uh, workouts in. But for now, it's the yoga mat. Yeah.
Anjali, that's so true, and it's something that I'm still trying to get better at. Being able to have that one activity as an anchor to your routine,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
activity that really allows you to center yourself, center your thoughts, center your being. and revive your energy. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she said that every year she sets a personal target to read 52 books, one book a week.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And you think
Yeah.
about it, it's doable. One
It's
book a
doable. Yeah.
week is absolutely doable. I mean, unless you pick up the really thick ones.
Yeah.
But it is so important for us to actually set those targets and set out that time just to get our minds to focus again. Anjali,
Yeah.
before I let you go, and I know we've taken 45 minutes of your time, we have some questions. We have a question from Antara here, who's asking how can one decide the best exit opportunity between an IPO, an acquisition, and a secondary sale?
No, Anta, thanks for that question, but I don't think there's any right answer to this question, and I would have to say it depends because it's very specific to the situation we're talking about, and also more importantly, the stakeholders who are needing that exit, or let me say engineering that exit, right? So it's really, do you want to raise more capital? Do you want to do like a combination of primary and secondary? Is it your early investors exiting? Is it your late stage investors exiting? And I would actually say that it needs to be driven by what the founder wants, because for a founder, this is a huge event, right? This is really your baby that you're giving up or giving away, and so I think founder intent and founder ambitions post exit is also a key factor in this decision making process. Does the founder want to continue? Do they feel that they're ready for like leading a publicly listed company? That's a very different skill set compared to and like being responsible now to retail investors is very, very different from previously being responsible to institutional investors. Are you willing to do that, or do you want to anchor to say a strategic exit and a corporate exit if the founder has plans to not continue and move on to something else? So I think I would say it's who the exiting stakeholders are combined with what the founder wants for himself or herself. Yeah.
If I can add to that, Anjali, uh, aren't there instances and stories of investors trying to influence founders towards a particular form of exit based on what the investor would like to have? And how does one think about that?
Yeah. No, of course there are. I think there'll be several examples of where you'd say like the board collectively, and in most cases at the time of an exit, the board is majority anyways controlled by the investor collective, is trying to drive an outcome for yourself. Have you had successful outcomes in those situations? Maybe yes. But I always say that if you need a true success story, then it cannot not be done without the full buy-in and without fully solving for the founder interests as well. Yes, you could have solved for investor interests, but to really, for us as an ecosystem, especially given how young the ecosystem is, I think we need more of the stories where the collective, as always, is coming together, and both interests are taken care of. And ideally, if you've built and scaled the right way, it should hopefully be like a win-win and a double opt-in. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I think we have time to take this question as well. How important are KPIs to monitor the startup
Yeah.
ecosystem?
A great
I'm
question. When
not
you say
sure how to
KPI, I
interpret
mean,
this one.
I'm hoping you mean with early stage companies and not the ecosystem overall, I'm guessing. But for us, we always say that it doesn't matter if you're seed or Series A, but you need to have metrics to monitor. If you're not tracking something, you can't improve it and you can't like fix it. So for us, it doesn't matter if you're a pre-revenue company or an idea stage company still building a product. We'll still expect a cost sheet every month telling us what your burn is, even though your revenue might be zero, or what your tech product roadmap is, or what your org chart is evolving. Like to say that, hey, I need to first like build my org, then build product, then start selling, etc. So we always encourage founders to not look at metrics purely from a financial metrics perspective, but also look at it, like I said, from tech and product, from HR, from market metrics? Are there any market macros? It could be regulatory, it could be just positive tailwinds that's enabling us to just sell better or build better. And having said that, we also don't want, I always say, like paralysis by analysis. So let's not have like a 10 sheet MIS for a seed stage company. So it's always good to refocus and to prioritize. And so we always say North Star metrics, like just tell us the 5 metrics that are super important for us to keep an eye on at this stage. And those change from seed to A. It could be now, if it's a consumer app, it could merely be just activated downloads, DAUs, and MAUs, but then it will slowly start moving on to retention, and then retention evolves into like cohorts, and then it starts becoming about revenue, and then ATVs. So I think a short answer would be it keeps changing and evolving. Don't look at it purely as just financial metrics. There are other metrics that can be tracked and measured as well. And having said that, don't get lost in a plethora of numbers and metrics, and have a few North Star metrics that keeps you centered and focused as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Antara has just sent her thank you. And
Thank you, Antara.
I know we are over our planned time, but thank you so much, Anjali, for your insights, your perspective, your experience, your knowledge, wisdom, for sharing everything with us and all our viewers. Thank you. It was such a pleasure, Anjali. I
Like
hope you have
always,
a
thank you
wonderful
so
holiday
much,
season.
Nupur. Same to you. More power and praise to everything WinP does. Keep marching forward, and we will always be here to support you. And you are our champion in many ways. So thank you for doing everything that you do for us.
No, thank you so much, Anjali. I hope you have a wonderful day and Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you so much. Wishing everyone the best for the year end, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.